Coming up, a drug dealer and his wife were living the high life until everything fell apart. She left him and he was arrested.
He didn't even realize that the things he were doing were really wrong. He thought being nice was sharing his drugs with people.
I began to fall in love with the drugs themselves. They now became my wife. They were now my supporter, my supplier, my provider.
Stay tuned and see how an encounter with God changed their lives and restored their marriage.
Boy, thank you so much. Well, Betty, it's good to get to visit with our friends. I'm James Robison, and we've got a guy that got a life sentence, Betty. I mean, in prison, but he's sitting here. So everybody in prison needs to listen up. There's hope. I mean, really hope. And then the girl he's sitting here with, he was married to, and she divorced him because he was such a thug, you know, and a drug addict, and just really wasn't a good guy. And then she got into New Age, and then he had a head-on collision you're going to hear about, and she was so impressed by the effect of the collision, she married the guy again. and it changed her. I mean, Guy and Kate Iliano, how do I say that?
Iannolo.
Iannolo.
But that was good. That was good.
They call me Robeson up where you used to live up in Buffalo, but it's Robinson.
All kinds of names,
yeah.
but it's okay.
But would you welcome Guy and Kate to life today? We're glad you're here. We really are. I don't know how we start this because it's quite a story, Guy, but I mean, you know, I said that you were kind of not the best guy to be, with this girl, and she left you, but I mean, she came back, and I mean, you know, it wasn't like she brightened up and realized she'd made a mistake. It was like you brightened up. And is that really the way it was? He
literally
changed?
Brightened up, yes.
He really brightened up.
Yes.
But I mean, was he really, bad to live with?
No, I married him originally for his potential. I saw the good in him. But it wasn't manifesting, let's just say. He was rough. He was unable to really show love or be loved.
Did other people see, quote, his potential too, but use it the wrong way?
I think he was always a nice guy, but he didn't even realize that the things he were doing were really wrong. He thought being nice was sharing his drugs with people.
Yeah. Tell us, Guy, about it.
First of all, you know, in the period that I was growing up and in the drug world, to be a drug dealer, especially a cocaine dealer, was an honor. It started off with the money. Of course, you know, the world looks at money. The more money you have, the more power you have, and so forth. Eventually, the drugs started to overtake me, and it was no longer just a weekend party, and that's just a deception. You know, we always think we can just party on the weekend. Eventually, it overtook me, and it began to affect my businesses, my everyday life, my relationship with my wife, and to where I was so gone. I was so possessed by this addiction to want to use. I began to fall in love with the drugs themselves. They now became my wife. They now became my best friend. They were now my supporter, my supplier, my provider. Everything was in the drugs.
It's hard for people who've never been hooked on drugs to understand how powerful they are. But they really hold you captive?
Totally hold you captive. It got to the point where even after my wife divorced me that I tried a drug program and it didn't work. I got to the point where my only way out was death, to where I actually slit my wrists wanting to die. I wrote a note to my daughter in my own blood, and somebody came in and kicked the door and rescued me.
Oh, and tell us about the life sentence, because I referred to that when I opened the show.
At the age of 20, in upstate New York, I was associated with individuals in the drug world and so forth, and I had gotten arrested with one of the largest drug busts. So at that period of time, they had these Rockefeller laws, and it was a life sentence for a certain amount of money or a certain amount of quantity of the drug, and I was sentenced to life. So when I went to prison, I went to Attica at first, at the age of 20, and that's where they started me off at. And I was allowed to go to a parole board after a year of doing behind the wall. And I thank God that when I went to the parole board, they cut me loose. So I did about almost a year and a half behind the wall.
Why do you think they cut you loose?
Favor. I mean, I behaved myself and so forth, and it was actually my first drug conviction, though I was arrested many times for drugs but never convicted. Because, you know, with attorneys and so forth, and with a little bit of money here and there, you're able to get your way out of certain things. But so I never really had a conviction. So this is my first conviction, and I was sentenced to life.
What do you do when you got out? What happened?
Well, when I got out, I realized that, and you know, going to prison is an education for a criminal. So I learned more when I went. And when I got out, I was vengeance. I wanted revenge. I wanted to do the drug business and get away with it. So when I got out of jail, I actually met my wife, Kate. And I knew that we were supposed to get married. We ended up getting married, and you know, I was still doing drugs here and there, but I wanted to stay away from it as much as I could, but I couldn't because when I was a computer technician. I went to school for it, and they brought up my life sentence and my criminal activity and my past, and they cut me loose. And I said, that's it. No matter where I go, I'm going to try. I can't get a job. This is always going to follow me. I might as well go right back into the drug world. And that's what I did. And I was wiser and smarter, and I really never got busted again until...
You kind of set up some fronts for your business?
Yes, I had fronts. I had business fronts. I owned antique limousines and all kinds of things that we were putting money into. And then eventually the drugs overtook me so badly that my wife couldn't handle it anymore.
Did you know that he was into the drugs when you married him?
Yes, ma'am. I did the drugs with him on weekends and maintained my professional status as a registered nurse during the week. I think a lot of it was that I did the drugs with him to keep him home because he was going to do it someplace. He'd go out with friends, or if I did it with him, he would stay home.
Tell me about the collision. She's left now.
She
left. Couldn't take it, so she left. I referred to a collision.
What had actually happened was God had sent back a gentleman in my life that I used to ride Harleys with, and he had gotten saved, and I didn't know it. And of course, my mouth was still quite foul and everything like that. You know, I mean, I was way out there. And he said to me, why don't you come to a service with me? And I thought, you know, what do I got to lose? I've done everything else. So I went to a service with him, and they were all clapping their hands, praising God, praying in this funny language. I thought, man, this is crazy. But it kept coming to me. And a voice came to me one time and said, do you want to get off of drugs and alcohol, or do you want a whole new life? And I thought, you know what? I tried getting off the drugs and alcohol, and it didn't work. I've got to want a whole new life. So my wife was gone, everything was gone. It was an opportunity for me to start all over. I didn't know how. I didn't know. I believed in God, but I didn't know who he was. And so I went to the service, and I remember this preacher just saying, listen, that's all you need to do is ask Jesus in your heart. So I have an 80-pound Doberman dog. So I got home. I was given a Bible. I took my 80-pound Doberman dog. I went down to the pool, and I was laying next to the pool, all oiled up, thinking I'm about to catch a tan. My house is in foreclosure. I'm going to lose everything. What do I got to lose? You know. So I'm like,
go out looking sharp.
I'm always looking. I'm always do the best I can do here. You know, I haven't got 2 nickels to rub together. You know, I had running water though. Praise God, that got turned back on. And so I'm laying there, and I remember what this preacher said, and I looked up into the sky, and I said, you know, God, I know you're out there somewhere. I know. And all of a sudden, I said, you know what? I got to tell you, I've had a hard time believing because I've called out on you, but I really never knew your name. And all of a sudden in my heart, I was like, you know what? I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry for every person I killed, because people that I sold dope to destroyed houses, homes, families, children. They overdosed. I mean, so many things. And when I was in the drug world, I used to go to the places, and when I'd sell them dope, I'd say, I'll never get like them. I'll never get like them. And then I found myself right next to them. So I began to repent and asking God's forgiveness. All of a sudden within me, man, I started crying and weeping like I never did in my life, like I just took on the pain of the whole world. And once that left, and I sat up and I thought, wow, what's going on here? And all of a sudden, I'm blinded. And this cloud overtakes me. And this love starts filling me and filling me and filling me. And I figure this must be God. And it got me so high that I realized that everything I was looking for, the drugs, the alcohol, the power, the women, the fame, and everything, was this love that was filling me. And I realized it was God.